Before we address this question, we need to first explain a few brief points about an halachic Jewish marriage. According to Jewish law, dating back to the Bible itself, the groom must give something of value to the bride in front of two witnesses. This act actually creates the marriage. From then on, they become husband and wife. Now, universal Jewish custom is to give a ring. But from a purely technical halachic standpoint, the ring is merely a custom based primarily on Kabbalistic reasons. It is the value of the ring that the groom gives to the bride that actually creates the marriage. Because according to halacha, the groom must acquire something. Now, obviously, he is not acquiring a woman. A woman is a human being, not property. What he is acquiring is exclusive rights to her hand in marriage. From then on, no man can be intimate with her except for a husband. That's why the halachic terminology for this act is called in Hebrew kiddushin, which means sanctification. The woman now is sacred. Her status has changed from a single woman to a married woman. However, if only the bride gives something of value to the groom, there is no marriage. It's an invalid marriage. But the question is, why? There are a number of reasons. Number one, from a purely halachic technical standpoint, according to the Bible, a man may marry more than one woman, but a woman cannot marry more than one man. One of the obvious reasons is to ensure that we know the identity of the father. Now, the sages over 1,000 years ago have already prohibited polygamy. So for all practical purposes, a man is not allowed to marry more than one wife. But nevertheless, from a biblical standpoint, which the whole Kiddushin originates from the Bible, they are. So from the Bible standpoint, the man's status hasn't changed, only the woman's status. Therefore, the man needs to create something here in the status of the woman. A second answer is based more on Kabbalah. The wedding ceremony, the chuppah, is not just a symbolic gesture of showing affection and love to each other. And it's not only just formalizing an existing relationship. It actually creates a new relationship. Before the chuppah, before the ring, the husband, the man and woman are two souls. Afterwards, they become one. Two separate individuals with two minds and two hearts, but a united soul. We can understand how two souls become one by observing how two bodies become one. In the act of reproduction, there's a physical union of a male and a female. In the bodily union, the man gives and the woman receives. Only that way can they create new life in a child where both man and woman become one flesh, one body. We know that the physical world is a mirror image of the spiritual world. The workings of the soul reflect in the workings of the body. Just like in the physical intimacy, in the union of bodies, the male gives and the woman receives. Similarly, the chuppah is a spiritual union of souls. And to create that union, the male must give and the woman must receive. Only then do they become one spiritually. Just like we can't play around with the physical facts of life, we also can't play around with the spiritual facts of life. A third reason is that the reason why we're addressing this question, because people object, why should the woman be just a passive bystander, just receive? But let's think about this. Who says receiving is any less important than giving? Actually, the Talmud says that the receiver gives to the giver more than the giver gives to the receiver. Take an example of talking and listening. What's more important? Talking or listening? They're both important. And sometimes listening is more important. If you go even deeper than that, when the woman receives the ring, she's not just a passive bystander. She has to accept the ring and thereby consent to the marriage, which is an integral part of a halachic marriage. So by her accepting and consenting to the marriage, she is an active partner, in some way even more powerful than the giving of the ring by the man. Now, coming back to our question, what about a double ring ceremony? Well, when the bride gives a ring to the groom in return, they're just exchanging articles of value. They have just made a trade, and therefore her status hasn't changed to a married woman. The legal transaction implied by the groom giving to the bride has been matched 1-for-1 and thereby cancelled. Her status hasn't changed. But then you can ask, okay, let the groom give a ring to the bride as an act of kiddushin, and then afterwards let the bride give a ring just as a gesture of love and affection. Well, actually, this question was brought to Rabbi Moshe Feinstein in 1970. He was one of the most eminent halachic authorities of the 20th century. And he said, if it was done in such a way, then it would not invalidate the marriage. However, he says that a rabbi to perform such a ceremony would be impermissible. His primary concern is that this would be misrepresentative and would mislead people as to what constitutes an halachic marriage. The wedding ceremony is a very sensitive and sacred ceremony, and therefore we want to avoid even the external appearance of impropriety. Based on this ruling, most Orthodox rabbis will not perform a double ring ceremony. Those that do will make it very clear that the bride giving to the groom is not an act of kiddushin. Many of these rabbis would do it at the end of the chuppah ceremony, much later, after the groom gives the ring to the bride. Here in Victoria, the Rabbinical Council a number of years ago addressed this issue, and the overwhelming majority of the rabbis was to strongly discourage this practice, and if requested, to advise that the bride gives the ring to the groom in private or at the reception after the chuppah ceremony. Thank you.